Good morning, everyone, and welcome to the Clackamas County Board of Commissioners policy session on May Day, May 1st, Gary, 2024. Would you please take the roll, County Administrator Gary Schmidt?
Yes, thank you, Chair Smith. Commissioner West will be joining remotely, but he is not online yet. All the other commissioners are present. Your first policy session today is 5-year Transportation Capital Improvement Program for fiscal years 2023-2024 to 2027-2028. Presenting today is Dan Johnson, Director of Transportation and Development, and Karen Burig, Long Range Planning Manager. Go ahead, please.
Thank you so much. Chair Smith, Commissioners, thanks for the opportunity today to come before you and present to you our 5-year capital improvement plan for our transportation work. I have Karen Burig here with me, and essentially I'm going to pass it over to her because my brain is still on Hawaii time, and I'm just not Karen's going to do a much better job than I am this morning, but we'll answer some questions obviously when we get done here. We are looking for some direction, bringing this forward. Obviously, we like to have these plans. We require these plans to be vetted and approved by the board, so there is an ask at the end about the consent agenda, but with that, I'll hand it over to Karen to run through the presentation.
Wonderful. Good morning, Commissioners, Chair. It's really good to be before you today to discuss the 5-year capital improvement program. First, I want to acknowledge that Anthony DeSimone, who's with us today, he's a transportation planner at DTD, and he's been with us for not quite 6 months, but He was really central in pulling together this document. He's been able to really get up to speed on some new mapping techniques. He connected with all the various project managers, and he assembled a really great document. So I just wanted to acknowledge that. We might need to reference him if there are some questions we can't answer. So I'll start off with, let's see if I can figure out how to move this forward. Okay, there we go. What is the 5-year CIP? What is the 5-year capital improvement document? So basically, this is a document that brings together all of the capital transportation projects that will be underway for the next 5 years. These are projects that have been that are managed within our capital team, as well as within our transportation maintenance team. They are investments in our county roadway system. As it says on the slide, they are projects that are expected to cost more than $50,000. We have funding secured for these projects, and they reflect past board decision policy. We update this 5-year CIP on a 2-year cycle. So we bring it before the board every 2 years. The project lists, and just so you know, they're in a lot of detail, and they're within your packet, and they're on PDF page 29 of your packet, and they include a variety of information, and it also includes when the project is intended to be scheduled, what years it will be underway. It also indicates the different funding sources for the projects. It's important to maintain this document because we need it to be in alignment with our comprehensive plan policies, as well as it's a tool that's referenced in our zoning development ordinance. So it's important that we keep it up to date. So how does a project get into the 5-year CIP? So basically, these projects, as I said, reflect past board actions. They come from various planning documents. They come from our safety action plan. They come from our ADA transition plan. They come from the 20-year transportation system plan. And they also come from our pavement management system plan and the 5-year pavement management system plan. So there's an assortment of various past planning documents that really feed into this particular document. So one of the things that we'll see, we do have some new things that are in this 5-year CIP that are different from previous years, and we'll start to talk about that now. So here is the map. And the reason we're choosing to kind of show this map now is that this really is a representation of all of the projects that are on the 5-year CIP. And one of the things that's different, that we're doing different this year than we have in the past, is that we are including the paving packages, the paving projects that will also be underway. So those are the blue lines. I know it's really hard to see on, this particular document, but it gives you an overall view. But the blue lines are the paving projects, whereas the red lines are our typical capital transportation projects. And so what you can see here is that we're having investments throughout the county. And so I'll go into a little bit more detail about these, but again, these can be found within your packet and within the 5-year CIP document on PDF page 28 if you wanted to get way into the weeds. So let's see, we're going to go over some details on the next slides. So first of all, we wanted to let you know we've completed some work. There was work on the past 5-year CIP that is no longer on this CIP because it's done. Yes. Yay, we're very excited about that. So projects such as you might recall the CRC Mobility project, which was the package of multimodal improvements that was along Sunnyside Road. We also had some the Sunnyside Road paving project and ADA investment. So there's a whole different suite of things that we really had been working on and now is completed. So what does this 5-year CIP document include? So this 5-year CIP document includes 60 capital projects, 28 paving projects, and it also includes, and we've incorporated within the list, our planning projects. So there's 7 planning projects that are also on the overall list, so there's a whole suite of different types of projects, but there's a lot going on, is what I'd like to say. There's a lot going on. And so on the screen here is an example. These are just sort of an example of the different project types. We have classified and grouped our projects. So we have upgrade projects, and those are projects that really look at the whole cross-section of a roadway. So it's not just a pedestrian or bikeway project, but an upgrade project includes all different types of investments. We have bridge and culvert projects, ITS, which is Intelligent Transportation Systems, safety projects, active transportation. We're including the paving and road surfacing repair. And then we also have congestion relief projects that are a part of our Community Road Fund. So those are our broad categories of projects. All right. And then here's just kind of a sample of like the impact that the Community Road Fund had and the different types of projects that the Community Road Fund has. And all of this, the Community Road Fund is one type of funding source that's within our overall 5-year CIP. But we can kind of see here from these are just examples, with our 6 safety projects, 5 congestion relief, 2 paving, and then some strategic investment that are specifically funded through the Community Road Fund. All right, so now we've also included just sort of some summary tables to give you an idea of changes that have occurred across time. So the first thing that we did is that we looked at our past 5-year programs and really understood, okay, what's the complete investment that's happening? And as you can see from this slide, there's quite a bit more investment that's going on in this 5-year CIP than in the previous one. And there are some key things that we wanted to highlight on why we see that increase. So first of all, as I was talking about with regards to the Community Road Fund, that funding stream has matured. There's more projects that are completely underway. So there's more projects that are being funded that way. We have seen an increase in federal and state grant funding. We also, in this cycle, as I talked about before, have included these paving projects, and those hadn't been included in our 5-year CIP in the past. And then we also have a very significant investment along 172nd that is occurring, and we're doing that in partnership with Happy Valley. So that's also impacting this increase of investment that we're seeing. So this gives you a picture of, I was talking about the different kind of project categories, how we're investing in all types of projects. And so this gives you an idea of what percentage of our investments are happening in different types of categories. I wanted just to call out, and I kind of grouped them for myself, but both the upgrade and the CRF congestion, so CRF is Community Road Fund, that includes 45% of our investments are going into those types of projects. Our paving and repair projects, they're about 16%. We also have culvert, bridge projects, and then our other category, I was looking at it kind of closely, our stormwater projects, that's about 12%. Our active transportation projects are about 12%, and safety projects are about 8%. But this gives a full breakdown of the project types and kind of the percent of the investment. So this next slide speaks to the funding source. So we just talked about the types of investment, but this is like, where's the money coming from, right? And so those funding sources that are in blue, we would call local funding sources. They're either the road fund, the HB 2017 road fund. We've been keeping track of that separately just so we understand where those investments are going. But we also put in this local funding source, the transportation system charges that we collect, tax increment financing. Those are funds that we're collecting locally. And that's about 60% of the investments. As you can see here, about 21% of the investments really are state or federal. So those are grant funding sources that we may be getting. And as I indicated earlier, we have a substantial investment along 172nd, and we are calling out that separately under local partnerships. That's actually 20% of the investments, or nearly 20% of the investment that's going on in this 5-year period. All right, so the other element that I just wanted to highlight that's within the 5-year CIP document, and we do this to be able to understand how our investments are impacting different types of community groups throughout our area, is we have a transportation equity index, and we do an assessment. We just really try to understand how these investments are impacting different demographic groups and concentrations of different demographic groups in our county. So as you can see, there's seven different categories that we look at, and we're trying to understand if there are different transportation options and availability of transportation for all different types of residents of Clackamas County. So these demographic groups have either been underserved or marginalized or potentially negatively impacted by the transportation system in the past. And by using this Transportation Equity Index, we can see how our investments are improving access to places with concentrations of these demographic groups. So, and this is a map. It's a little hard to read. Really, the two darkest gray categories are the places where there are the highest concentrations of these various demographic categories. And so you can kind of see the interplay between where our transportation investments are and where these different demographic groups really are residing throughout the county. And it really is more informational for us to understand how our investments are impacting people. So with that, just as I'm going to kind of wrap it up as a summary, you know, some of the key main differences between the previous CIP and a 5-year CIP and this one, as we talked about, there is an increase in the community road fund investments because these projects are maturing across time. We are seeing an increase in federal and state grants. The paving projects are influencing the amount of investment, and those are paving projects that are supported by our road fund and our HB 2017 road funds, and the significant kind of local partnership that we have with Happy Valley along 172nd. And then we also looked at how there were differences between the way that we invested in our the impact of our Transportation Equity Index assessment previously and this one. And there have been changes across time, and some of those reflect that people have moved one place or another. So there are concentrations of these demographics in different locations. There's also just differences in the census blocks. So that accounts pretty much for the differences that we have. So one of the things I also wanted to note before we go on to the next steps and the options is that another thing that we're preparing is to be able to have this 5-year CIP available online in a more user-friendly format, not just a PDF that someone downloads, but they'll be able to access what we call a storybook. So it will be online, and people will be able to see the different projects as they scroll down and get information about the projects at the same time. So we anticipate that that will be available for folks to use at the time that this is officially approved by the board. So with that, we're here for questions and the next steps. We have options for the board. Option one is to place the 2023 to 28 5-year Transportation Capital Improvement Program this is the old slide. I don't know how that happened. But, sorry. I'm just a little bit off, but it's different than in your material, so I'm gonna, I'll say it correctly. Here we go. It's right here. So direct staff to submit the 5-year capital improvement program for approval on an upcoming business meeting is option 1, or you can direct us to, per your discussion, to bring it back for further review from the board. And so we recommend that you direct staff to submit the 5-year capital improvement program for approval at an upcoming business meeting.
So I just want to expand just briefly about it. I want to make sure the board understands the fact, it's a living document. And so one of the things that I think is important to understand is the fact that, as Karen so eloquently said, it identifies the fact that these are projects we have funding for, but you're going to see projects in various stages. And I think Bull Run is a great example. If you think about the fact that we have funding right now for the design, but we don't have funding for the construction yet, but we're still actively looking for that. This document doesn't limit our ability to get that funding. It doesn't limit our ability to move that project forward. And so if that opportunity comes forward, we can adjust and modify and work forward to get those kind of projects in play and under construction. So we'd be happy to answer any questions you might have.
Yeah, you're going to get a lot of questions, a lot of comments from commissioners, so just chill out. Commissioner Savas, you're up first.
Great, thanks. Well, thanks for all the work on this. I know it's not an easy task, and appreciate all the work and input from our members of our community that are engaged in, over the years, crafting this. Karen, you heard me say this recently, I think, at a meeting, maybe not, maybe you weren't in that meeting, but I have a question, and that is this. The way they do the transportation equity mapping, I'm concerned because, you know, I won't say I have a firm grip, but I have a pretty good grip of understanding our lower income areas across the county in different areas, right? And I certainly have a sense of that also in Portland. I know that in East County, in a couple of the Multnomah County Commissioner districts, that their low-income demographics are quite different than the low-income demographics it can be in our farming communities, right? The workers, the nature of the farming community, just like Marion County and Lynn County and Yamhill, where there's a lot of farming. So at the same token, I do know that after all the years of displacement, and Central West Portland getting a lot of the attention and the rents going up and so forth, it's really artificially put a lot of people in East County in a more concentrated sense, to where if you look at their equity map, right, indexing, it looks starkly different, right? And it is what it is, right? But, I'm not saying that it's artificial, but I think the way it came about wasn't natural, like farming, for example, or about industry or anything else. So I wonder, as we don't really do that here, we haven't had, we haven't done anything as a government that has displaced a large number of people, right? And, you know, I would say, and I've talked to Multnomah County commissioners past and present about this, that their areas look different accordingly. So what I'm wondering is that if Clackamas County has their lower income areas or people or constituents really more spread out and really not concentrated, does it actually hinder our ability? Are they not being served? You know, I mean, I don't know what the percentage is, but if we just took the overall aggregate of different income levels and we didn't really look at it geographically, but just looked at it, is that a better measurement as opposed to trying to look at it from a geographic sense? Because I don't think that we don't have that, but yet I know there's a lot of poor communities that don't even show up on this equity map. And I do know that even the what do you call it? It's not the precincts. The census
tract.
The census, the census tracts. The census tracts, I've done a lot of studies, well, not studies, but I've looked at it around the counties, around the county. And I can see areas that are I mean, it's 100% poverty for kids that are 20, or people that are 25 and younger, for example, and older demographics as well. So, you know, look at the demographics of where the mobile home areas are at. You don't see those really displayed on the map at all. They're not even, so I don't think that, I'm worried about the regional aspect of that being a tool when it's not an accurate reflection of the people we're trying to serve who live in Clackamas County.
So I think there's a lot there. And I think, first of all, I wanted to highlight that our assessment is Clackamas County based. So we're not using the same tools that are being used at the region. So we're looking really locally and looking specifically at our census tracts. I do understand what you're talking about with regards to how can we truly understand the kind of the unique demographic factors and such as low income, and that's really important. And so one of the things that we have done, so we have for our equity index, we have a compilation of the 7 different factors, which then, as you were noting, kind of waters down, in essence, the low-income element, or doesn't allow that to really be able to be focused on. But the way that we've looked at it has been both ways. We have a compilation score, but then we also look at the impact by each individual demographic category. To then be able to understand that impact. I do know that, like I had noted, there's a variety of different funding sources. So some of funding sources really look heavily at income level, like the community, the CDBG, the Community Planning and Development Grants, or no, that's
Community Development Block Grants.
Thank you. The Community Development Block Grants, they look specifically at income levels, and you can only be able to, do investments there. So depending on a funding source, they may be able to emphasize different demographics. And I guess, finally, these factors weren't an influence in, we are using these factors right now just more as a reflecting back. How have we impacted these different areas?
So, Chair, I just want to say one thing and why I bring this up, and that is, I'll digress a little bit. So, I don't know if it was last night or the night before, there was some news coverage of Multnomah County Chair's State of the County. And several years ago, I think Clackamas County coined the phrase, so to speak, of transit deserts. And so in her presentation for the State of the County, talked about the transit deserts in Multnomah County. And I'm sure there are, right? But Multnomah County has the richest amount of transit anywhere in the state of Oregon. I mean, it's such a stark difference between the amount of transit per capita available in Multnomah County. But what I want to say is that this equity map, TriMet uses it significantly in some of their, especially in their STIF dollars, which is that 2017, and it was this STIF and ST, I forgot what the other one was. But my concern is that if it's reused regionally for distribution of dollars, and it's not a good tool for us to really reflect that, our situation is going to continue with the largest transit desert in the metro region. And I'll say that. I feel confident saying that we have the largest transit desert in the metro region by far. And transit deserts probably in total.
Okay, thank you very much. We can always come back. Commissioner Schrader, you're up.
Okay, let me pull up the slide. I was looking at the finance slide. Funding, was it the funding summary? Yeah, let me find it. Sorry, I had it pulled up. Why don't you go ahead to
Okay, I'll come back,
come back
Commissioner
to me,
Schrader.
and I'll find
I'll
this.
turn your light back on to remind myself.
Okay, great.
Commissioner Scholl, you're up.
Thank you, and good morning. So there are many safety issues in the county. I know we're working on them, but a few that I want to just run by you to see if they're incorporated in this plan. One is the intersection at Sunnyside Road and Highway 212 in Damascus.
Okay, great.
You're familiar with that, and the difficult every morning and every night, people coming off Sunnyside Road to get on 212 is I know you did some work on that here 2 years ago, but is there any more plans on alleviating that congestion in this particular plan?
So there is not a project
Okay.
on the 5-year CIP. So what that means is there has not been a project that's been funded
Right,
that
okay.
we're managing
Okay.
in that area.
Okay.
So no, it is on our overall 20-year plan.
Yeah,
but-
okay, yeah, okay,
Yeah, so
good.
we know
And-
we need to do
and-
it, but we need to
and-
match it with funding.
And I'm praying that in that 20-year plan, we see Phase 3 of the Sunrise Corridor happen, and so that problem will go away. The other one that I get a lot of calls about is Highway 224 and Amasiga Road. A lot of crashes there. Is that, you mentioned, I
Yeah.
think in the past, there was a plan for a roundabout at that location,
Yeah, there is.
or
And
something, some traffic signals.
I believe that's on, if I'm not mistaken, that's on ODOT's radar.
Okay.
I think it might be in
I
the,
wish Mike
Yeah,
is in, Mike
no,
Hesler's in
I
county
think you're
court
right. I
right
think
now,
it
so-
is, okay.
Yeah.
But I think that's being taken care of. And then, third question is, on the improvements for 172nd, they end, I think, at Maple Lane, is it? The northernmost end of that improvement?
Oh, 172nd?
Yeah, so my question is, 172nd is becoming a north-south heavy arterial for traffic that doesn't need to go through Damascus, but can go north. Eventually, hopefully, it'll all be expanded so that heavy freight can go north through Foster up to 182nd and down to Interstate 84 in the east. Okay? Is that on the radar? Not in the 5-year plan, but are you looking at that?
So I'll have two answers to that. One, there is a connection that is planned
Okay.
that would actually connect 172nd to 190th that would help complete the north-south, kind of make it
Okay.
a straighter, because there's some topography issues.
Yeah.
But I'd also say that our county boundary is right around that area, and some of those investments, let's say on 172nd and Foster,
Yeah.
they actually are in Multnomah County.
Okay, so we need to work with them, and
Yes.
that's going to be critical, because once that's improved, the pressure on the Damascus area should be reduced. Okay? Final question is, I've got some communications about the Stafford Road roundabout that impacts the nature preserve. Question on that one, that's in this 5-year plan, correct?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay, it is. And I just want to make sure that we've done the requisite outreach, because as you've heard me say before, when you've done extensive public outreach, there's always somebody that didn't get reached. You can't ever hit 100% on this. So, but do you have an ongoing public outreach on that project to alleviate concerns?
So that project has been under design since 2020, approximately. We have done public outreach. We have done, I think, if I recall correctly, I think we've done 5 specific meetings with the Stafford Hamlet in that area. And I believe we've done at least 2 or more specific open houses, direct mailers, but we're doing more. We are going to do some additional outreach. I will, just for sake of discussion, that project is in final design.
Okay.
And so when we come forward to you with that, if you recall those resolutions of necessity, when we start a public project, as a part of that project, our charge is to make sure those projects have as little impact as they can on the surrounding property, and try to minimize that. And so, but as you said so eloquently previously, you can always do better. Public outreach can always be different, can always be better. So we are doing some additional here in the near future with some targeted areas and interested parties.
Right. Okay, well, I appreciate your work. I can see that this took a lot of work, and for those of you who worked on it, most appreciated. and I will support your option 1 on this. Thank you.
So I'm just going to follow up with, you had a question about Amherst-Sugar and 224.
Yeah.
It is a project that is on our 5-year CIP.
Okay.
And it's to construct a new roundabout intersection to improve safety and minimize wait times. So that's
All
part
right,
of that.
good. Well, thank you.
Commissioner Schrader,
Thank
thank
you.
Yeah, I'm looking on page 13, and I think this is a simple question with a pretty simple answer. So, Community Road Fund and Community Road Fund Strategic Investment Fund. What's the difference between the two of those?
So the
Both community road funds, yeah, I was
The
curious.
Strategic Investment Fund, I'll speak to that, is really where we're investing with our partners, our city partners, in different projects along the way. So we're really working on a joint project, whereas the Community Road Fund, we have some safety projects, we have congestion relief projects, and those are all talked about under, with our Community Road Fund Committee.
Yeah, so when we adopted the Community Road Fund, or the Community Road Fund was adopted, there was a set aside.
That's right, I remember.
Yeah, there was a set
Okay.
aside for partnerships with cities. And so we're collaborating with cities in certain areas to direct those dollars towards joint beneficial projects or road transfers, et cetera.
And that was because of the vehicle reg fee, I remember that we passed, correct. And that's been, as much as we don't like to raise fees, but because we were so specific with the projects, if I recall, that we were very clear where this was going to go, that it made a huge difference in getting public support, because our rural areas in particular have seen increased capacity, I think, at some of those rural intersections. Now, a little bit about the Lake Oswego piece. That is a roundabout in the Hamlet area, which is unincorporated Clackamas County, correct?
Correct.
And there's been a kerfluffle with the city because of a parks group. Could you elaborate on that a little bit? What's the...
I guess two things regarding initially for the Community Road Fund. I want to make sure we're clear. We got direction from the public to spend those dollars in 3 areas. That was
okay,
safety,
great.
that was local road paving, and that was congestion relief. And we've targeted those and distributed those dollars around the county. Number one, urban and rural. Number two, in regards to the concerns, during the design of that project, there was a local citizen initiative to look to limit impacts for public spaces, what they called natural preserves. And the city does have ownership of a piece of property outside the city limits in unincorporated Clackamas County that was identified on that citizen initiative. And I don't get into right-of-way negotiations in a public forum like this, but we are working with the city on that particular project. They've requested some additional outreach, which we are working to advance, and having a discussion with those interested parties about that particular project. We have looked at ways, I mean, the nuances around that particular area. That is the western leg, which goes from the roundabout into Childs. The roundabout is on the current road location, so it doesn't have any impact. But what happens is the fact that you're pinched between 2 properties.
Yeah.
One to the north that's owned by the city and has a natural preservation component to it, and one to the south that's owned by Metro that has a natural conservation component to it. So you're trying to thread a needle between those 2 things while ensuring the fact that you have a safe access point to that roundabout. We've had talks about, hey, do a signal. A signal has more impact. A signal, as crazy as that sound, if you put a signal there, basically you've got approach points and angles that those roads have to come into that have more of an impact than the roundabout that we're doing today. We actually looked at that during our assessment of the alternatives that were out there.
Yeah, and I just wanted to make a comment about that. If this is a huge impediment to actually doing that project, despite all the work that's been done to it, we could potentially say, okay, this is not going to happen and move it to another area. I know that Wilsonville has some projects that...
Project timing is, so we can have a discussion if we aren't successful in moving that forward in a cooperative manner. We can have a discussion about project timing, but we wouldn't recommend removing it from the list because it's a 5-year plan. But anyway,
Right. Okay, and I'm probably not going to suggest that. I think the glitch I'm seeing here is that you did a significant outreach and communication, and this is a city group within the city, and you've been working with the city staff and all the commissioners there, and I think my assumption would be that they would also be communicating with their citizens that passed this charter. And to me, colleagues, that's where I think the block was. So I just want to say that our staff did a fantastic job with outreach in that area. And I know all the counselors, but when they say, well, it's just the hamlet, I'm like, well, you talk to all the city folks, you talk to the city manager. People were aware of this project. And so I would just say that for me, I would assume there was multiple conduits of information for this particular project that would not allow this to happen. And I just want to thank you because you've done a great job doing this, and I think that that's the message we're going to send our colleagues in Lake Oswego. But, if they don't want it, they just need to let us know, and it's a shame all that work would be lost. And they seem to imply that the real issue was that you needed to talk to their citizens who are this parks group. That's what my understanding is. Okay.
Thank you. Commissioner West, you're up. You're online.
Thank you, Chair. Touching on a couple things, I couldn't agree more with Commissioner Soft's comments around transportation
Commissioner
equity.
West, just a moment. Tony, can we
Yep.
turn up the volume because I can't hear you? Please speak directly into whatever you're speaking into. Thank you.
Okay, can you guys hear me now?
Yeah, there we go.
Okay.
Okay, so I just wanted to start by saying I couldn't agree more with the sentiments from Commissioner Savas on the transportation equity mapping that we just saw. I guess my concern is with that mapping, it would concern me if the big focus around equity was primarily focused on immutable traits or things are race essentialism as mapping out those resources. I'm sure the fine people in that are maybe don't fit that demographic but have some generational poverty and issues would feel a little bit differently about being neglected and overlooked, especially in more of our rural areas. I think it is also quite interesting that the chair of Multnomah County would talk about a transportation desert when other counties like Clackamas and across the state are actually the ones truly with a transportation desert. I'm somewhat concerned about TriMet and that and specifically use of that map and its methodology. It seems to be pretty ideologically driven around some core values that I think are actually quite harmful than actually getting core resources to communities that need them the most. And I think people that are maybe have lack of resources and infrastructure, regardless of how much pigment is in their skin, should have the resources they need in investment in those communities. I think as we take people that have struggled on the socioeconomic ladder in society and we fairly distribute across the board or where those real pain points are, that's where we truly help the most people overall. And that should be our goal. And so that equity map and its methodology and the ideology behind it, I find it quite troubling. I'm going to transition after making that comment is, Commissioner Schrader and I were at a Lake Oswego City Council meeting where we watched Mayor Joe Buck and the majority of the council berate and chastise Dan, the county, and our staff, and grandstanded about how much they love Lake Oswego more than anybody else and how they're true patriots and how our communication was abysmal. And they really just made a big spectacle from their dais about the county and the role that we played in bringing forward an $18 million infrastructure roundabout in an area and an intersection that is currently an F in rating, and this would bring it to an A rating. The documents show that Mayor Buck and the council have provided written letters and support of this roundabout. And behind the scenes, they seem to be very supportive of this roundabout, but they're kind of getting an entanglement with this natural preserve, this parks area on a very, very small amount of square footage where this would have an easement in that park. But I do, Commissioner Schrader's always the peacemaker, but the truth is that, you know, publicly they really kind of were coming at us, man, pretty hard, the county, and being pretty, and with a lot of with a lot of disdain for the county publicly on bringing this $18 million piece of infrastructure that they don't have to pay for, that helps their community immensely. So I don't know. I want to be good partners. We've always seemed to be able to collaborate well with Lake Oswego. I felt as a representative of the entire county, bringing them in a critical asset like this, that's not what it looked like publicly to me. I looked and reviewed the communication that happened through the 30, 60, 90 planning phase of the project. Communication happened across the board. They had multiple meetings with people in the hamlet. The city staff was well communicated with. Letters came from Joe Buck wanting the project. So I don't understand the consternation and kind of the venom that was publicly displayed. I mean, pretty harshly at Clackamas County and our staff. It was unfortunate to see. I know there are a lot of projects that need a lot with limited resources. We always wish we could do more, but maybe this is not the project to be prioritizing right now. I don't know what that looks like. I know, Dan, maybe that's a conversation we have and figure out what that looks like. But you guys did good work. The evidence is super clear that you guys did your best to communicate to the public and go through the proper channels that, so I don't know. I'm actually pretty disheartened by the behavior of the mayor and and the council president and many of the members of that city council, when we've had such a good long-standing relationship on so many critical issues, which I hope we can maintain. But there was really a misrepresentation and a mischaracterization of the intentions and the efforts that this county made. And I know we're in politics here, but that does concern me as we look at these projects and which ones to prioritize.
Is that it, Commissioner West?
Yeah, that's it.
Thank you. I'm going to opine on a few of these projects, and I know Commissioner Savas, you have your light on, but it's interesting that 172nd gets 20% of this whole funding stream, and I know that was set aside. I really want to say I hope Happy Valley is gracious and grateful that they get 20% of this entire pot. And I really don't want to hear complaints on Happy Valley how we're not doing projects for them anymore, okay? And that's a very public statement, because this county is 1.2 million acres. How many miles of roads, county roads do we have, Dan?
1,400.
We have 1,400 miles of county roads, which is the largest amount of county roads than any county in the entire state of Oregon. And we try to spread the wealth to those who want it and who appreciate it on very limited transportation funds. I want to ask a few questions, and then I'm going to go back to the Stafford Child's 65th project. I understand out in Molalla Way, Highway 211 and Meridian Road. And I'm getting complaints on that intersection. There used to be a hanging red light to slow down traffic because the Wooden Shoe Tulip Bar is down there, and during the season they have a lot of traffic through there. And now traffic lights are set on the side of the road, and the claim is nobody sees them. My point is this: there's a big state meeting coming up in Monitor regarding that, about the possible future of a roundabout there. However, Meridian Road is a county road, Dan. I have been invited to attend because there's a county intersection there with a lot of state officials and a lot of the public who are outraged that there's not something done on this intersection. Do you know about that? And I don't want to walk into this situation where there's no county representation at my back. Do you know what's going on with that?
Yes, and we have you covered. Mike Besner will be attending the meeting. We're doing research on it right now. We will have information for you before that meeting takes place.
Okay, thank you. I want to turn your attention to page, hang on, I think it's 13, that really colorful pie graph, where 19% of the fund is congestion and 26% is upgrade. Now, if I was a citizen looking at this pie chart thinking, my road is full of potholes, I can hardly drive my car down without the shocks or tire blowing, I don't know what those two categories mean. What does that mean? How do you identify them? And in this chart, are there projects identified? I know there are. I can't make sense of this graph.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying?
Yes, I understand what you're saying. So I would say that the paving/repairs category kind of cover that I have a pothole, right? So those are paving and repairs, that's our transportation maintenance, kind of larger capital in their program. Now, with regards to what an upgrade project is, and honestly, that upgrade category has 2 projects, and one is 172nd. Okay, so it's a very good example of what an upgrade project is. It's being upgraded from a rural road to an urban road. Mm-hmm. It has both adding lane, the cross section, investments in intersections. It will have sidewalks. It will have, it will be a full upgrade of that particular project. The other upgrade project is the project that our development agency is working on along Monroe. And that project as well, it has some investments in the sidewalks. It has some investments in the roadway. It has an intersection investment. So it's a whole suite of investments. With regards to the CRF, Community Road Fund congestion projects, there are a suite of projects that might the purpose is to have traffic move better. So they look different in different places. So that might be an intersection improvement. It may be adding, I think up on Welch's, we're looking at a pedestrian investment to make it safer for everyone. So there's a separated pedestrian environment. And so that's what a CRF congestion project may look like. So there is the suite of paving, which are kind of the pothole.
And one thing I want to highlight, a couple things, one of which is we may want to see these pots adjusted. The pots are dictated by the funding sources that we have, if that makes sense. Yeah, and so, and when you look at 14%, that's like 14%, that's $30 million. And so that's $30 million going into some, if you look at just paving itself, into those particular areas, approximately based off the total package. I just got a text also. Amsiger is under design right now. We're fixing that, but I just want to come back to that as well.
Thank you. Thank you for that. Now let's talk about the Stafford Childs 65th proposed roundabout. How much is that project?
Right now, we're approximately $18 million.
Will the cost go up?
Yes.
So we're probably looking at 20 million minimum?
If there are delays.
Okay. This Board of County Commissioners and our transportation staff try to make as many people happy as we can. And we've had, in consent agenda, design projects come through that we approve, and everything's been very public on this. And we all thought that this is what the community wanted because we get constant barrage. Why aren't you doing something on fixing Stafford Road? I can't pull out of my driveway because there's too much, so we do something. And then lo and behold, there's this huge opposition. Now, I'm concerned, I'm distraught. I am very distraught at what happened at that public meeting. It sounds to me like people really don't want this. And there's 2 other mitigating factors in this. If indeed you say that there's a metro, I don't even know what to call it, park set aside that has to be dealt with, and then Lake Oswego has this overlay, did I even write the name down? What is that called? Conservation district. Now all of a sudden that's raising its ugly head as a way to oppose this and kill the project. That should have been looked at in 2020 when this was first developed. Mm-hmm. But now, at the very last minute, the people who are in opposition to this bring it to the forefront. And to me, it looks like the leaders in the city government, whomever they may be, I am not sure who is leading that city, are using that as a wedge to kill the project. So we've got, this presentation is fantastic. There is so much information in it, but I've heard from 2 of my colleagues today, and I'm inclined, this is what we're going to do, commissioners, we're going to set this project aside until, at a time, we can get everybody in the room and figure out how to move forward on this. And I'm going to tell you, Commissioner Scholl brings up 224th and Amsinger as a roundabout. I know of other areas in the county that would appreciate a roundabout. I'm going to use my hometown, City of Molalla, as an example. Last summer, they constructed a roundabout at Tolliver and Highway 213. And I thought, okay, I'm going to be braced for this. Now, this is a community that gets hardly anything. And it wasn't until I was in the Oregon legislature in 2002 was I able to get the very first traffic light in South Clackamas County at the corner of Highway 211 and 213. And when I did that, you thought the world was going to come to an end. Okay? You thought, my gosh, don't do a traffic light, it's going to kill people. And the reason why that traffic light's going to kill people because they're going to see the yellow and they're going to race through it and they're going to race through the red light and we're all going to die. So when this roundabout came in, I braced myself. Okay, we're going to have the same problems with this. I didn't get one complaint. We had a construction company coming in from the private sector that knocked that thing out in 3 months. We had some diversion. I have not heard one complaint, and I have driven by there, and it's smooth, and it's nice. And then I kept thinking, oh, we're gonna have complaints after it gets in. So what's funny about that roundabout is you can tell people aren't used to it because it's way out in the country, right? We're just not used to that as compared in the more urban areas. People are going, oh, okay, hi, yeah. So we're learning how to do this roundabout. The community was wholly acceptable for that, and they were so thankful that it took away a dangerous intersection where school buses go through because the school bus barn is right down the road. My point on the Stafford Child's 65th, I think what I need to see, and I need to be reassured by, number one, the leadership in Lake Oswego, that they are come out publicly in full support of this project in writing, okay? And it'll be set aside until that happens. Secondly, I want to know about the 2 conservation districts, if those projects can be mitigated, and we need to all sit down in a room and have a public meeting and figure out what the problems are. Because we all know that there's people begging for $20 million for a project to fix a road in Clackamas County, and that's what we're going to do, Dan. Thank you very much. And you guys have worked so hard, and frankly, I don't appreciate the way your staff and you were treated at that meeting. We bent over backwards to give them what they wanted, and the way they treated you was awful. I won't stand for that. Mr. Savas, you're up.
Okay, I'm going to come from a different place on this one. I don't disagree. I'm not happy about what I heard either about how our staff were treated at the Lake Oswego meeting. So thank you for being there, Dan. Thank you for the pain you take. But Dan, you and I have been here, you've been here longer than I have, but I've been here for 14 years now. And I don't care where it's at. There's always an upset about some project when people actually realize they want it. And then when they realize what it takes, or the acquisition, or what it looks like, property takes, or whatever, even though they're small. I mean, this is really small. It's a small take of this particular property near Childs. So it's, to me, I understand the politics behind it. I truly do. But I think that you all know my history with safety, and some of my family members I lost. That's why transportation safety is a big deal for me. I don't care if it's sidewalks, I don't care if intersections, whatever it may be, it's a big deal. And I remember years back when I was trying to advocate for getting beat up by Wilsonville, some of the Wilsonville people, about the 65th intersection when they wanted the urban renewal district to take care of their little dip and all that. We had some people actually call me out for, yeah, I mean, advocating for the project, but advocating for a way for the county portion, how we fund it. So staff, DTD staff took me into the room and showed me one of the rooms they have over there and showed me all the hot areas where all the accidents are, and basically showed me that, hey, the hot spots where most accidents are happening are not here, Commissioner, on Stafford Road, they're up here at Childs. And it's people's lives that we're talking about here. I remember the battle, Central Point, New Era Road. I remember the battle about Malala, about the traffic circle over there. What we put a safety zone with ODOT's help on Highway 211 going out to Malino area. That was something that ODOT did. I want to thank ODOT for that. I remember the conversation with Happy Valley recently, even about wanting to build the road and using the TSDCs to build the road or whatever it may be, but they don't want to take ownership of the road to maintain it. So all these years of working at C4, even prior to being a commissioner, longer than 14 years, I've seen this push and shove between the cities and the county. But at the end of the day, this is a safety issue. These are people's lives, and I think we have to sometimes put our emotions aside and realize that's why the combination laws are in place for us to tackle this, because it is in the interest of the public. It's the best interest of the public. That's what gives us the authority to do these things. And you know what? I don't know who the next family is going to be impacted by a death at Charles Roads in Lake Oswego. I don't know if they're going to be Lake Oswego residents or maybe West Lynn residents or Wilsonville. It doesn't matter. At the end of the day, they're people. They live in Clackamas County, and maybe be out-of-towners as well. But still, at the end of the day, they're still Clackamas County residents. So I would like to see a letter, sure, from Lake Oswego. But I don't believe delaying the project is in our best interest because it'll just cost more. So I just think we proceed with our property negotiations as we laid out and get this project done. And we politely asked everyone to come together and realize what we're trying to do. We're not doing this because it makes us money. It costs us money. Wilsonville did, I'm not Wilson, but Lake Oswego did ask for this project. And I think everything that Commissioner West cited about the letters and documentation, it's correct. So I understand the political pressure they're in, but at the end of the day, we don't have a choice. It's people's lives are at stake. Safety is the issue. I just say we bear forward and let them know that this is, I would say, somewhat uncalled for.
Thank you, Commissioner Savas. You know, I appreciate what you say about that. And safety is an issue, and too bad some of these people can't see that. Have there been any deaths at this intersection?
I don't have that data off the top of my head.
Okay.
The answer is yes.
Yes,
Yeah, it's a dangerous intersection.
It is a dangerous intersection.
very
And I don't
dangerous.
want to be sued over a conservation district. I want a letter. Now, Gary, there's a second shot at this, correct? What happens today if we say yea or nay on this?
This will move forward to a business meeting consent agenda where you will formally approve it there.
And at the consent agenda, any commissioner can pull any item off that consent agenda, correct?
Yes.
And this project, I could do that very much until I get a letter from the city of Lake Oswego in full support of this, and they figure out how to mitigate all of a sudden these conservation districts. Commissioner Schrader?
Yeah, I just wanted to add, I do agree with Commissioner Savas. It's a dangerous intersection. That should be the major issue. So my suggestion would be next time when this happened, it isn't our staff that should have been stuck there getting berated, because we're elected officials and we're elected to get the tomatoes thrown at us. So I think next time it's okay to have staff there, but I honestly think if there was going to be that political exchange, which is what I saw, was that we needed to, we shouldn't be you should not be put in that position, is what I'm trying to say. We get elected to be put in that kind of position. That's how I see it. And then it would have been, I think, a pushback, but it put you guys in a bad space. That is one of my real big concerns with what I saw.
Commissioner Schull?
Yes, so the Stafford Child Roundabout project is high on the priority because of safety. It's intended to improve safety, not just for people in that area, but for all people of Clackamas County that use Stafford Road. I'd like to see it stay in your priority list as it is. I'd like to see us go ahead and make one more attempt to calm the waters with Lake Oswego and other groups associated with this issue. Do our best, but remember, we cannot achieve 100% agreement on anything, okay? So let's just try one more attempt with the staff to resolve any kind of concerns about this project, but let's not take it off your priority list. Let's keep moving ahead. Thank you.
Gary?
Two things. First, Commissioner West has his hand raised, but my comment is a suggestion. You could keep this project on the list, but direct staff not to move forward on that project until the three things you list are accomplished. So it'd just be on the list, but no further action until those three steps are taken.
Also, I could delay scheduling of this at a later business meeting and not bring in the entire plan until May 9th.
You could do that.
And that is my purview as chair.
Yeah. Yes.
Commissioner West, you're up.
Yeah, there was I think a lot of this is political grandstanding where they wanted the Clackamas County to take the heat on the conservation district, and they wanted Clackamas County to take the heat of the easement onto that property, while they could look like they were advocating for those activists in their community. Why we dealt with it. I would want to move forward this when Lake Oswego is ready to be a collaborative member on this project and be appreciative of the $18 million investment we're making in that roundabout. It is a safety issue. It should be a priority, but the tone should change and the respect level should change and the collaboration within two local governments should change. So I would like it if their mayor and their council president and council made a concerted effort to show how they're changing their tone as we work together to fix this issue. If not, there's a lot of dangerous intersections in Clackamas County that need investments. And I think that is how we should be doing business. And here's the other thing. Lake Oswego, the residents of Lake Oswego are not only their constituents, they're our constituents too. Martha Schrader, Commissioner Schrader is a longstanding member of that community that's highly respected. She lives in that community. We very much care about the well-being as much as they do. We're all in this together, but we need a more neighborly and collaborative approach. I would be for not scheduling this chair, waiting to have a collaborative tone, being clear about the history and the accuracy of the role we played as a county, while giving them the opportunity to do the right thing and to retract how they behaved in that public meeting, especially the way they treated our staff. And it was over the top. I know we can get a little heated and there can be rhetoric, but that was over the top and inappropriate.
Okay, commissioners, I've heard from all of you. I've heard two commissioners say one thing and then say another thing and reverse themselves. So somebody's going to have to do something here. So the buck stops with me. This is what I'm willing to do at this point. We're going to put off any action on this until the business meeting on May 9th, at which time I would like to see Lake Oswego offer a letter of support from their leadership, their city council, and whoever their executives are over there for this project to go forward, in at least some type of roadway that we can follow to mitigate these park districts that we just heard about at the last minute. And so they have until May 9th to do that. That's an ample amount of time for them to send a letter. So I suggest somebody contact Lake Oswego and say that I'm very serious about this going forward. I think Commissioner Savas, you're up next.
Yeah, I suggest this. You said it earlier, Chair, so I would suggest we approve option 1 today. It says at an upcoming, not the upcoming, but at a, so it could be any upcoming meeting. So that would allow that window of opportunity for Lake Oswego to send us something. But so I'm going to, with that in mind, I move to direct staff to submit the 5-year capital improvement plan for approval at an upcoming business meeting.
Seconded.
Do I hear a second?
I just give you one.
Oh, I couldn't hear that, sorry. Commissioner Savas has moved. I'm going through the language. Just a moment, please. We approve this plan at a upcoming meeting, but Commissioner Scholl has seconded that, but keep in mind, commissioners, at that time, any commissioner has a right to pull any project off this, and if we don't get at least partway there, we need the letter from Lake Oswego. I'm going to pull it on May 9th. Make no mistake. Tony, take the poll, please.
Commissioner West.
Aye.
Commissioner Schrader.
Aye.
Commissioner Scholl.
Aye.
Commissioner Savas.
Aye.
Chair Smith.
Aye. Motion passes 5-0. Thank you very much, folks.
Thank you.
Gary, what's next?
All right, thank you. Next session is Supportive Housing Services Regional Annual Report, July 1, 2022 through June 30, 2023, which was last year, but we're having the report today. I'm just introducing this, so Adam, I'm taking care of it, so our guests please come forward. We have staff from Metro and members of the Metro Regional Oversight Steering Committee who are Clackamas County representatives that you chose, by the way, commissioners. This is an informational update only. This is part of Metro's outreach to partners to discuss the Supportive Housing Services measure and its successes. Yacina Delgado is Metro's Supportive Housing Services Manager, and presenting the presentation will be Dr. Mandrell Taylor and Dan Fowler, who are both Metro Regional Oversight Steering Committee members. Please come forward. Dr. Taylor and Mr. Fowler, now. Please come forward now. Everyone come forward now, please. We'll make room. We need an additional chair at the table. We'll make this work. Yacina, go ahead, please.
Welcome. We appreciate you coming here today. When we get the chairs, I'll have every member introduce themselves. Thank you.
Thank you so much for that introduction. My name is Yesenia Delgado. I use she and her pronouns, and I'm the SHS manager at Metro. We are pleased to bring you today an update on the second annual regional report that covers SHS implementation for the period between July 2022 through July 2023. So this is for the second year of Supportive Housing Services funding. As you know, voters of the Metro region approved a historic measure designed to establish a regional homeless system of care, working in partnership with Multnomah, Clackamas, and Washington County. All three counties before had some level of homeless services, so we are really building a regional homeless system of care with local implementation and local structures. One of the requirements of SHS via the Metro SHS work plan and intergovernmental agreements is that the counties submit an annual report each year by October 31st to the Oversight Committee and Metro. The Oversight Committee, who was established by Metro Council, then develops a regional annual report. The report, this regional report includes a detailed evaluation of each county's annual report for consistency with their local implementation plan, program compliance, progress towards their commitments, challenges and opportunities, and that also includes recommendations to Metro Council for improvements for the following year. The Supportive Housing Oversight Committee then brings their findings to Council and the three county boards. So we presented at this time to Metro Council, Washington, and Multnomah's Board of Commissioners, and we're elated today to be here with you all. So the presentation will be led by Dr. Taylor, who's the Oversight Committee's co-chair, and Dan Fowler, who is another member of the Oversight Committee. So thank you to both of them for all the work that they do on the Oversight Committee and supporting the work that we do. I'll pass it over to them.
Thank you and welcome.
Thank you. So as stated, Mandrell Taylor, Dr. Mandrell Taylor, clinical addiction psychiatrist, Kaiser Permanente Northwest, also currently serving as oversight co-chair for the Portland Metro tax measure. So seeing homelessness as a casualty of system and policy failings it's necessary if we mean to make meaningful change within our community. In May 2020, voters in the greater Portland area took a historic step and to address the crisis by approving a significant new funding source to support housing access and stability for people across the region. The result from the first 2 years demonstrate the promise of this historic investment, while also highlighting the work that still is needed to build an infrastructure for a regional system of care where homelessness is rare, brief, and non-reoccurring. Clackamas County has remained engaged in this process. We appreciate the leadership seen within our County Housing Authority with Chair Judy Smith, her representation on the Tri-County planning body. It's been the success has been great. I'm going to pass it over to Dan.
Okay. Do you know which slide we are on here? Right there. Okay, so today there's three main areas we're going to be talking about. One, the Supportive Housing Services overview. Second, year progress and highlights. And then the Regional Oversight Committee recommendations, which are later in the plan. Okay. To provide, the biggest role that we provide is to provide an independent overlook of the program. And the Clackamas County has 5 representatives, as the other 2 counties has. It's a 15-member board. And that role we play, we take very serious. And it's a diverse board, and there's business people and psychiatrists and doctors, and it's a very diverse board, but we take our role very seriously, and we ask some pretty tough questions sometimes. So the 10-year goals were to reduce barriers to housing instability and to connect with at least 5,000 households that were experiencing homelessness or needed permanent housing support, and to stabilize at least 10,000 households that the risk of homelessness or permanent housing. The, is this, what slide are we on?
I can take it.
That's yours, yeah.
Yeah. So implementation plans were developed with community engagement. Overall, we met and exceeded goals. Even rapid rehousing is now on track in year 3. But at the end of year 2, the SHS funded services and rent assistance, supported the creation of nearly 3,000 permanent supportive housing units across the entirety of the region. And once these units are fully leased, they'll represent 60% of the fund's 10-year goal of connecting 5,000 households experiencing prolonged homelessness. Next slide. There we go. In the last fiscal year, Metro's tax revenue totaled about $347 million. Now, this exceeded the estimated budget by $122 million. The increase was secondary to tax spillover from 2021, delayed payments and widespread income growth coming out of the pandemic. And after collection costs and regional allocation, $321 million was distributed to the counties. Next slide. All right. As you can see, the spending in year 2 is significantly higher than the prior year as programs continue to ramp up. Overall, the spending was nearly $152 million, 2.6 times higher than the prior year. And this growth was seen across all 3 counties. Now, all counties had more carryover in year 2 in comparison to year 1, which was expected, just due to the estimated 4 to 5 year program ramp-up period. And spend-down plans specifically to carry over funds were provided by the counties. And as part of their budget submission, a plan including funding reserves and one-time investments and increasing scalable programming.
Okay. So key highlights. The retention rate for those going into housing has been over 98% over the last 12 months, which is a really success story. We often hear, well, is it really working? Do they stay in housing? And it's 98% over the last 12 months. So, and that's a lot to do with case management that's been surrounding the individuals that go into housing. So there's really a sea change in that retention. The SHS fund is guided by a committee to lead with racial equity. Strategies are leading to improve the access to services for communities of color. And in the third bullet, the county has invested $114 million, all 3 counties, in contracts with 77 different providers. What we've learned is that local nonprofit provider network support is just key for success of the program, and the counties are doing that. We'll get into some of the struggles that they have in terms of billing and cash flow, but that provider network, the SHS funding has really opened up access for those providers and the work they do. So in the Clackamas County, overall county's 2-year activities investments are well aligned with the local improvement priorities for the first year. The county's made significant progress in their 2-year work plan. They've exceeded the regional goals for homeless prevention and shelter beds and achieved more than 80% of the regional goals for supportive housing units and placements. New SHS fund funded rapid rehousing program took a little longer to launch than expected, resulting in about a 50% of plan. And that was due to for just the timing of getting that program. I mean, there's a lot of programs going on, a lot of money, and to get the nonprofits to really ramp up, it was a workforce issue and a timing issue, but those have been now resolved. So those numbers we think will really be kicking up in the next year. Okay, next slide. And is this one mine?
I think we were going to skip this one at a time.
Oh, yeah, we're going to skip that one because we're trying to keep it short. So it's in the program, it's in there. So so what are the challenges that are facing? Well, there's always a growing need in this arena. Infrastructure building, just getting sometimes bricks and mortar, sometimes just the infrastructure of people and workforce is always a challenge. And when you've had a program at this level and you've really ramped it up, just hiring, I mean, it's hiring those people, it's tough. So the workforce and capacity issues, program delays because of that has been an issue, and then really syncing up and getting proper data. And data seems mundane to some, but it's critical to know how effective programs are. And those have been worked on, and a lot of work that the county staff has done has been very instrumental in collecting and getting the data program up. Okay.
Okay, so we are getting to the recommendations here. We'll just kind of go over a high level of this. Again, we want to keep it kind of nice and tight for you, but at the same time, give you a little bit of explanation with all this. So the committee worked closely to refine these recommendations. We wanted to be sure that we're continuing to address key barriers with implementation and opportunities for real success with the program. And we should probably just go ahead and get started. Let's go to the next one. Okay, that's fine. All right. So let's first one, regional communication and engagement. So the county has already done great work in this department. We're just encouraging you to continue to do so. Collaboration and coordination, metro, county, community-based partners. Really the goal of building communication work, again, it's already being done, but it's a lot to ensure that we are learning from one another from this and sort of, ensuring that we're doing this in a collaborative way. So just for lessons learned, to ensure that we're aligning on messaging. Go to the next one. And then financial and data transparency and accounting, yeah. So there's optimizing financial reports. The work with counties to lead, so this is more of a ask with Metro, but it's wanting to make sure there's continued work with the counties to lead the development of tools, definitions, methodologies, it's early guys, for measuring and reporting on spending on population A and population B. That's work that it's continuing to go on, and it's just making sure that we keep the eye on the ball and ensuring that we're continuing to work with counties, Metro's continuing to work with counties on that data alignment. Enhanced data integrity, yeah. So this is providing upfront guidance and support to counties on definitions and methods to increase the accuracy and reliability. It's similar, it's just ensuring that, the previous slide was more, ensuring that we're having alignment with the categories and things, and this is just ensuring that the data that we're obtaining really has the highest integrity and making sure that we're capturing the data that we need. And again, that we're learning from one another. So this is more the focus on the collaboration aspect.
Was this one we were keeping?
Yeah. And, and this is just evaluating to inform improvement. So once you have the evaluation, once you're doing this, are you using it? Are you using it to drive improvement? Ensuring that there is a framework in order to translate the lessons learned and what you're getting from the evaluations and it actually turning into, more optimization.
Okay. I mentioned earlier workforce capacity issues. One of the one of the things that has been talked about and actually starts to be implemented is creating contracts that are more than 1 year old. And then when you can get to the nonprofits and they have a 2-year cycle of contracts, it's just easier to plan and easier to do. And one thing that we've had discussions about is the SHS funding is not HUD funding. With a lot of times with HUD funding and different governmental funding, there's a lot more regulation, a lot more rules you have to apply. This funding was designed to be really flexible. So we're putting a flexible source of funding in what has traditionally been a very rigid form of distribution and accountability. It doesn't mean there shouldn't be accountability. There should be, and there is. But we're always saying, let's get as flexible as we can. And sometimes those system changes within financial departments are tough. And so we would ask that any support that you can give to your staff to stay as flexible as possible to help meet those real needs of that funding cycle would be critical. And there's been some creative work done, quite frankly, in Clackamas County I think they're the first county to go to a 2-year type grant cycle to consider a grant to nonprofits, holding them accountable to report so that they can have that funding for a cash flow issue, rather than hiring 6 people, not having any money to pay them, and then submitting a bill to get paid and hoping that it gets done before the next payable period. That's kind of tough and nervy. So those are the kind of workforce and capacity issues that are real, that we've talked about at our level to really set policies that allow that flexibility so these small nonprofits out here that are doing good work can do it in a way that they have cash flow to meet that need. So that's really one of the things. Did I skip to, let's see. The multi-year funding, and then we're always looking at, what is the livable wage scale jobs for the nonprofit folks that are working. It's tough work. I mean, you think about it, they're on the front line for all of us. I mean, they're in that trench every day working with homeless individuals, people that have great needs. Oftentimes, we want to make sure the pay scale is right. And, working within the homeless arena is tough. And when you're trying to do things, a lot of times people don't want facilities or don't want that. It's like, go away. Well, no. The folks that are in that, in the employment of that realm, they really take some heat sometimes. And we have to remember that their working conditions are really important. And so to really talk about that, and I know the county, our partners at the counties do that. They really work well with the nonprofits here. And is this one mine? Yep. So I've talked about this already. Really streamline county administrative practices, work collaborative with the counties, support that development of systems and managing that procurement, contracts, and spending. That's really what I've been speaking to. So. Okay.
All right, this is our 4th category. So we have glaring gaps within our social infrastructure, not only upstream with insecurity of housing, food, utilities, but downstream as well, access barriers to care. So quite often individuals and families, they're seeking emergency rooms, as a last result, which leads to worse outcomes, places a heavier cost in our system. So really working on integrating health and behavioral health services into already existing areas and developing areas, outreach, shelter, housing navigation, short-term housing, behavioral health integration of established institutions, which we already have existent. This work is being led by the Tri-County Planning Body actively. So it's just ensuring that we're keeping a focus on that.
Can I add something to this? I just really want to acknowledge Clackamas County in this area. I think you've taken a lead in this area of really pulling attention to behavioral health and having that as an integrated part. For quite a while it was, housing and what are you going to do for, it's like, no. And Commissioner West did a really good job the other day speaking about that. It's like we're all wanting people to be housed, but we have to also get to some of those root issues that they have. and to emphasize the nature and support it with facilities and support it with funding in that behavioral health arena is critical, and I really want to acknowledge you guys for leading that charge.
Thank you.
Yeah, go ahead.
All right, let's go. Yes. So strengthening implementation of new programs. Again, Clackamas County has done well in this. And again, it's just wanting to ensure that we're continuing to do well. So monitoring the cross-sector alignment and programming. We want to, we want to encourage new program development, but we also want to make sure that we're continuing to monitor it, make sure that we know how we're evaluating the programs for success, know that we know what those metrics are for our new initiatives. And the last is promoting comprehensive outreach. Again, Clackamas County has increased from, I think, a single county employee to a team of like 24 nonprofit employees in terms of outreach. So the goal is to increase the visible impact of this measure. So providing information to support the Oversight Committee, it would be helpful. We're going to continue to try to put a stronger focus in on outreach. We want to ensure that, that we properly understand all the initiatives that are being made currently, but also ensure that we're developing, a more of a collaborative way to learn lessons from one another.
Mm-hmm. Okay, and outreach is critical. If we aren't getting down on the streets and really reaching those that need the help and outreaching to them. And sometimes that's as simple as taking coffee to somebody and building trust. I mean, that's really outreach. And then getting to the point where they will be open to what you might have to help them. And if you haven't outreach to that, and just really develop that trust. And that, quite frankly, is one of the reasons why the numbers in Clackamas County, I believe, is so well, because they have a great network of nonprofits that are really doing that work. So anyway, and now Q&A or any other comments or questions you have.
Yeah, no, thank you. That's all we had for today. So we're happy to take any questions that you have. Our director, Patricia Rojas, is also here to answer any questions.
Yeah, all the commissioners want to make a comment. I want to thank Dr. Madrigal and Dan Fowler for your continued volunteer effort on this. You both are very dedicated. I appreciate all the hours that you have spent doing this, and they have made a difference to Clackamas County. So you all just need to be able to toot your horn on that for all the great work you've done in representing Clackamas County, acknowledging all the good things that Clackamas County has done, and then helping us to move forward. I made some notes here, but I'm going to defer right now to the commissioners. Commissioner West, you're up first.
We can't hear you.
You're on mute, Commissioner, if you're talking. He's having a technical, he texted me, he's having a technical issue, so can we come back to him?
We'll go back to Commissioner West. Commissioner Savas, you're up.
Yeah, thank you for being here today, and thank you for your dedication to this work and this human crisis that we have in this country. So it's probably one of the more complex issues I think our society has faced, at least in my lifetime, than ever. I mean, it's bad, it's tough. And I want to make sure my comments are not around directing, there's simply no silver bullet, there should be not a blame game here, right? We understand this is a complex issue, but I think government's role is probably first and foremost the most important one in this, and I mean that from a national, state, and local perspective. So policy failures, absolutely. Yeah. System failures, absolutely. The disinvestment in behavioral health in the state has eroded away the foundation and the workforce that otherwise would be putting us in a better place today. And we can look at this as, I think this part I struggle with, and Dan, some of your comments rang to me with as far as development of, whether it's the nonprofits or development of the system or whatnot. To me, a lot of this is, so to speak, I think that foundation should be state at quite the degree, right? And also the foundation also should be government and the nonprofits, as we're all developing, taking these dollars and developing a whole new industry, so to speak. The people, the pay, this is, again, a statewide issue as well. So I just want to make those broad comments that, and I believe it has to be collaborative. I've been here since the beginning of this program. I remember about 3 years ago when we approved the, in March or April of last year, or 2021, we approved the plan. And my concerns then was flexibility in the plan itself. I know there was population A, population B. I made the comments, well, when we get this money, this $14 million we're going to get on July 1st of 2021, that didn't happen. We were all caught off by surprise, and I was taking to heart, what the Metro Auditor had put out, that these monies could be less, they could be more, but at no point did we have any indication that the monies weren't going to come until a year and a half really later in any kind of meaningful way. So we were all caught by surprise and trying to ramp up something with very little resources, but we all did it. I understand Yesenia, is that how you pronounce your name? Yeah. If I heard you correctly, that there's a responsibility to have the report by October 31st, right, of every year?
Yeah, each county submits that.
Right. So when is the work done by this committee to bring us to this point? Does it take 6 months, or what's the timetable, the cadence that it takes from the submission on October 31st to the point in time where we can actually review the material?
Yeah, that's a great question. So the report gets submitted to the Oversight Committee in Metro on October 31st. The counties then join the November Oversight Committee meeting to do a presentation, answer any questions that the committee might have around the performance and how things are going in each of the counties. And then it's really December and January that the Oversight Committee really spends its time reviewing, analyzing, talking through the recommendations that they provided the previous year. And then talking and discussing what recommendations they would like to carry over the next year, which then leaves the committee approving the recommendations and the regional report in February of this year. So there is a bit of a lag there in terms of doing that work, that intentional discussions and oversight that they need to do. And I will just note that that lag in time was significantly improved from last year. The Oversight Committee didn't approve that regional report and recommendations till later in the spring, which meant we weren't coming to the boards till really June of last year, which is almost a full year later. And we heard from boards that was, that's quite a lag in time. So we worked really hard to condense that timeline this year, starting the presentations as early as March this year. And of course, next year, we're only hoping to improve that timeline.
Okay, and I'm not being critical here. I'm just trying to, be cognizant that this is, if I read everything correctly, we got 2021, 2022, 22, 23, and then we're here talking about results that are basically a year old, right? So, and I don't want to not recognize the good work that's happened since then, after the report, right, and the results. And there's successes and there's failures, right, or maybe shortcomings. I'll use that, not failures, but shortcomings. And I just wonder how we can somehow have a more, again, the lag time you speak to, thank you for that. I appreciate your candor, how we kind of streamline that a little bit better so that we're nimble, right? We can actually make the adjustments, and I'm hoping that we all can. And I'm hoping that we're learning from each other, what's working in Clackamas County, what's working in Washington County, and so on and so forth, and help each other. And I think our populations are different, our areas are different, geography, demographics, all that. So maybe the solutions look different as well. And I know that the media is doing a heck of a job right now on, unfortunately for Multnomah County, right, calling out the shortcomings there. And I know that we just came off a topic here you sat in on about a roundabout. So in a roundabout way, I want to say that the politics sometimes, I think, interferes with the good work that everyone's doing out there. So that's my trying to segue into, I don't think that we can afford to be political and point fingers when there's people's lives at stake. It's the same thing as the last conversation with transportation in this roundabout and this conversation, except there's far more people affected in this conversation, frankly, locally, than there is at a roundabout in Lake Oswego area. So that being said, the implementation plan, I had my question about it, didn't seem to have the flexibility. I think the mental health, behavioral health issue of the funding and the lack of resources in this state, people, human resource, people element in this state is going to have to be commensurate with the cost of education and today's wages and the cost of living that we have up here. So this is why it's a bigger problem than us. It's a state, at least a state problem. It's a national problem, certainly. But, you know, being 50th in the country on behavioral health investment and staffing per capita, that's not a good, I mean, I don't know how we build out of that. And that's a lot for us to take on here regionally. And knowing that the funding has got this 10-year window, and I guess we're in year 8 or 7, or year 2 or 3, so to speak, and we have 7 years to go, I think that we've got, at least here, got some numbers that give us see light at the end of the tunnel. We got some good numbers that we're seeing. But knowing it's a regional vote to put it back on the ballot, if the voters want to renew it in years to come, I think we have a long way to go. I think we have a lot of work to do before we even think about that. And we got the resources there to do it, granted, and maybe we can invest those. But my concern today, and this is a question, this is where I'm going, my concern today, if we were to reconfigure the implementation plan to have more flexibility, because I saw it as a sticking point back 3 years ago. I thought it lacked really flexibility. And we have more dollars now. So is there a recommendation to look at or thoughts around how we change the implementation plan to make it more flexible to meet some of the needs as we're learning? How can we be more nimble in that area? So that's my question to you, and I'll leave it there.
Okay.
Thank you.
I want to make one comment, and thank you, Paul, really spot on. I think you'll see broad strokes from us on that in terms of encouraging to work with staff and management to become more flexible in how money and cash flow works, being a little more flexible in maybe a grant program that you account for rather than an invoice that you have to wait to get paid from. So there's some specifics that I think the Metro staff and the county staff are working on in that area. In terms of timing, you know, we get the numbers fairly quickly from the counties. It's that, it's like the churning of those numbers on how we can take that and make recommendations. And sometimes, and this year was one of them, where there was corrective action that needed to be taken against one of the, with one of the counties. And they were stand up and, they addressed it with us, but that took some time. And we take that role real serious. Like, in those numbers, and they weren't using what we thought the funds as fast as they should. So we put a series of corrective actions in place. And, kudos to the Metro staff. They held that accountable because you got to get the money out and get it to work. So, we take that serious, but because of that, it took some time to actually then get recommendations done and get to hear. But there really is a desire I know the committee we're on is to get that condensed, because we are looking at, here it is, May. It's going to be a new year pretty soon. So I really agree, yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Commissioner West, are you here?
I am here. Thank you, Chair. I have a couple thoughts. Maybe the tide is changing a little bit in the focus from Metro and potentially some of the money around the supportive housing services resources that we have now. And there has really been a lack of emphasis in behavioral health and addiction services and recovery services. And I think many people have been a little bit frustrated with that reality, that it has been such a heavily housing-focused approach that those that are chronically and persistently deal with houselessness are often intersecting with some level of substance abuse disorder in varying degrees. And I really want to make sure as we move forward that the policy allows quality pockets of excellence like Clackamas County, which was reported here today, the good work that we're doing, to continue to have the autonomy to operate in creative ways to tackle that issue at root causes to prevent it from happening, but also to use some of these resources to build the infrastructure that we lack to provide care for people. And at a certain point, this tax is scheduled to sunset. I know there's conversations going on about that. But beyond saying, hey, we need $43 million a year to make sure that we have rental assistance for those in Clackamas County, the conversation is never, how do we reduce the number of people as a community that need that assistance? How do we get that population stable enough where we start to see those numbers go down? As a nurse, if you come into the emergency room and you're having an exacerbation of heart failure and you can't breathe and your lungs are filling full of water and you have chest pain and you're in a chronic acute state, it takes a lot of resources to stabilize you. But once we stabilize you and we build out that infrastructure, we should be able to talk about a glide path to stabilization to where you need less resources or you have more self-sufficiency. You become an individual that has some healing, some hope, you're on your feet again, and you're using less of those. The conversation coming from Metro, especially with the potential of making this tax permanent, is never that. It's just how can we just ramp up more resources and carry this forward? And so I hope as we move forward, we can start to figure out how to calculate and have a plan of, as a community, all of us stakeholders. Dan, we talk about this. You're a stakeholder as a business owner that's invested in this issue, the faith community, our neighbors, the government, all of us are stakeholders in this. How can we help make the community healthy again and know that we're doing it by seeing a reduction in the need for the dollars because people are becoming better. We've stabilized the community. And so that's one. I like to see some of that conversation happen moving forward and tracking of those things. And then I like to make sure that we have access to doing it the Clackamas County way, building out recovery centers, having funding available for that, and being able to do programming here that's replicatable and that is objectively meeting the needs of where people are at. And my last comment is, and you guys can comment to this, because I'm concerned that if we start talking right now about making this a forever tax or even extending it, when the most of the state has not even shown to the voters the same type of positive outcomes in Clackamas County, I don't think we have garnered their trust yet. Then we potentially poison the waters of having the ability to adjust this moving forward. And we still see a lot of issues coming out of Multnomah County. We share a 10-mile border with them. Washington County is doing pretty good, but they still have some struggles in other parts of the state. So I think that we still need to be very cautious about expanding the bureaucracy, expanding the tax, expanding the expense on the taxpayer when we still have a lot of goodwill to earn and trust and positive outcomes to show. And then feel free to comment on that, and then I will, that's all I have to say, Chair.
Okay. Any comments on that? We have several commissioners yet who want to speak.
Do you want to address that?
I think I would just like to appreciate the feedback. Thank you for that. We'll definitely keep that into consideration, and I'll pass that feedback on. But really great points around behavioral health, and I would just like to highlight that this is the supportive housing services dollars, so behavioral health is an allowable expense there, and I know that there's investments that Clackamas County is doing around that have been really great to see and learn from, so thank you.
And, I'm not, maybe Patricia should answer this, but in terms of our committee level, I will say that there's no discussion about making this permanent. We've not had that discussion at all. I think that I can't speak for the Tri-County Planning Body, and I know there's been questions asked from bonding and housing folks about, hey, they see money over here, and their bonds are, going down. So that's maybe more of a staff level, but I can tell you from our level, there's been no discussion at that.
Thank you.
Yeah, I would also say that, I think the commissioner's speaking to the heart of what the initiative is is to address social needs. You know, that's the purpose of this initiative. You know, when you're doing that, you're more likely to have productive citizens. You're more likely to obtain employment, to you know, job retention. And it's one of our recommendations is to have a stronger focus with behavioral health. Yeah. So, I mean, it's something that the committee, the Oversight Committee has flagged. And, you know, we want to ensure that we're having, you know, continued focus on that issue, and trying to figure out the best way how to leverage the funds to support, you know, ongoing initiatives.
Commissioner Scholl.
Yes, good morning, Dr. Taylor, Ms. Delgado, welcome to Clackamas County. Mr. Fowler, good morning. Today is May 1st, 2024. So on the supportive housing services measure that has a 10-year life, this morning we have 3 years and 4 months behind us. We have 6 years and 8 months ahead of us that will take us to 31 December 2030 when the supportive housing services measure sunsets. I have a question. Does Metro have an operational plan for the supportive housing services measure and your operational aspirations for it that will take us from today to New Year's Eve, 31 December 2024. I think that's important because we have to have an integration between the problems and the challenges we face in supportive housing and the time we have to actually work on it. Now, there has been some discussion about the idea of making the supportive housing services measure permanent. It flies in the county amongst families and small business like an airplane made out of lead. So, you know, the other thing to look at is that you mentioned the supportive housing service measure produced $347 million last year, I think was the number you get. Okay. Okay, so that means in the next 6 years and 8 months, we can assume that it's going to have produced in taxes well over $2 billion. So the people will be looking for results. So what I'm saying here is that there is a possibility that on 31 December 2030, funding ends for the supportive housing services measure with no vote of the people to extend it for an unknown amount of time. So getting back to this idea about looking at where we're at, because like I said, 3 years and 4 months have already gone by, leaving us with the 6 years and 8 months to actually work with. So I think it's important. I know it's difficult. We've been working very hard. Our housing staff's been working hard. I know Metro staff has been working hard. Nonprofit's been working hard. Mr. Fowler and his organization working hard to try to wrap our minds around what is happening and what our capabilities are to react. You know, we have so many things going on. But I do believe that if this hasn't happened yet, it's time to stop and look at an operational plan for the 6 months, or 6 years and 8 months we have left to try to come up with a look into the future on our glide path to the sunset time for this supportive housing services measure. So we're not just caught in 6 years and 8 months in a situation where maybe there's things we hadn't looked at. So the other thing I wanted to ask you about is, you know, we have not just Metro, but all levels of government. They have a tendency to look inward on problem solving and deal with, in this case, rental assistance, transitional housing, outreach, and those kinds of things that are needed. But at the same time, we need to make sure we're looking at the causal problems, factors that drive the problems we have to deal with now. Mental health, the economy, the cost of housing, Senate Bill 100 from 1973, all these things are interplaying in this problem. And the other thing, too, is no matter how effective you are, okay, no matter how effective we are, if we don't look at what's happening at the state level and decision-making there, and what's happening at the federal level and decision-making there, and how those decisions are impacting the demographics of the state and other issues, incursion of drugs. Okay, so I'm hoping that Metro, because you have the overall leadership on this measure, that you're also having a very dynamic program of legislative coordination and other things to reach out to actually try to solve some of these causal factors that we're dealing with, and not just the inward, more obvious solutions. So I know it's very difficult, but again, my message to you is that we have exactly today, exactly 1/3 of the time of the 10-year SHS period is gone. We have 2/3 left. And in those 2/3, or 6 years and 8 months, we have to arrive at a time, with God's help and the labor of so many people like yourselves, to arrive at a time when we can say that this problem we have to deal with is been mitigated, solved to a large extent, and that whatever happens after 31 December 2030 is something that we can easily manage. Okay? So thank you for your work, and thank you for your attention.
Thank you, Commissioner Scholl. Commissioner Schrader, you're up.
Yeah, I was particularly interested in the workforce piece that you talked about, because I'm on our local workforce board, and I also serve on the workforce board at the state level, the group that advises our HEC, which is the higher education folks. So you do address workers' workforce and capacity needs, so the people that are actually providing the service. What about the folks receiving the service? Is there a workforce nexus that is part of this whole process? Because that's really my straightforward question. So I know about building capacity, but what about people once they're placed, once they're housed? What's the connection between making sure that those folks are employable to a level where at least they can have some self-sufficiency and some, opportunity to be more prosperous?
I can speak a little bit to that, and I'm speaking, I know there's nonprofits that as part of their work involve workforce training and job improvement. And I can tell you that the nonprofit that I'm associated with, it's a big part of what we plan to do. Which is that, and we're in discussions with the community college on that and others about providing ways of workforce. And so there's, there's employment opportunities within the facility, and then there's all at the appropriate level of improvement. But it's a huge part of getting to what you were talking about, is like creating that whole person, but getting them back into society. So it's a big part.
Yeah, I'd like to see that mentioned the next go-around, because I think it is an important piece of it, because quite one of the things that we've been working on nationally is a prosperity initiative at the National Association of Counties. And again, it's not just, it's getting the housing, but it's also getting the job, it's getting the literacy, it's getting financial, it's that continuum. So without that workforce piece, and there are significant dollars that we owe we hope we owe a will. It's still the Workforce Innovation and Opportunity Act. We're hopeful that that will be passed by Congress with additional dollars, and we're waiting to hear what that's going to look like. But there are significant dollars for people who are disabled and people who, as well, so everybody can get a job. So it's the continuum of workforce to those that are highly qualified and just need a nudge, down to the areas where people are going to need a little more to get back into that job.
I think you raise a very good point. I mean, and I really appreciate that. You know, a lot of times when we're thinking of workforce, we're thinking of the workforce that we're employing to help the clients, right? But I think what you've really pricked my mind, Commissioner Schrader, is to really consider the client's workforce ability. And I think that is really, I'm going to take that back. That's really strong. And I know we talk about locally, and, you know, yeah, it's part of what we do, but I don't think we've really talked too much about that at a regional or at a metro level.
And you do have a good workforce board in the Portland region, and we have Clackamas Workforce Partnership, so they probably have more information about that. And they probably are significantly involved. It's just not reflected in this particular report. So let's make sure they're all in the loop. Okay, thank you.
Really good.
Yeah, I think that sounds right. I know that each of the counties has some sort of workforce intervention that's highlighted in their annual reports, but thanks for that suggestion of pulling that into the regional report as well.
It's going to be both for the people that serve and the people that get served.
That's really good. Thank you.
Thank you very much for this presentation. As chair of this county, I have the sometimes dubious distinction, and you all can appreciate and probably take this with humor, of participating at length ad nauseum in all discussions regarding the SHS. I'm on the Tri-County Planning Body. We are now having roundtable discussions on another topic. There's probably not a day that doesn't go by that I have somebody in my office or staff member talking about, gee, can we do this next? Had a Zoom meeting yesterday on polling questions. I pulled back and I said, you know, that one question just isn't quite right. Let's fix that. And so the amount of time and effort is gargantuan. Mm-hmm. And you mentioned how well Clackamas County is doing, and I love some of the comments that you came up with when you said we need to continually to refine goals and strategy, and that goes to flexibility. What we're doing today, we might find next year we need to modify it and move forward, and this measure should allow us to do this because we're dealing with human beings. We cannot be so structured and so immovable that if we find a different way to treat this population that we can't do it. And I would go to behavioral health and I will challenge opponents who say that we cannot use this money for behavioral health and addiction services or we're going to be out of the business because what's going to happen is there's going to be all this money sitting on the side and we're housing people without treatment. That is not going to work. I cannot be more stringent in those opinions. Outreach to match the need. I think Clackamas County has been fantastic in doing that. And I have been told, and it's true, Adam, we have about 20 people that go out daily on the streets, and Dan, like you say, give them a cup of coffee. Engage in a conversation. It may not be the first touch point, may not be the fifth touch point, but if we have enough touch points with these people, and we can offer them basic human services and bring them in off the street, and then remember what it's like to have a hot meal, a hot shower, and clean clothes. And we get them into the system and just, you know, guide them along the way. Whatever the reason their homelessness is, there's no judgments. What is it? Let's help you move that along. I think that is wonderful. On the workforce, I remember, I think it was last year, that either Vahid Brown and Adam Brown are in my office. Tootie, there's a problem in the contracts. We hire people, they put them on the payroll, and then the money lags behind, and the nonprofits can't afford to pay them. I don't know whose idea that was, but yeah, let's change that to a 2-year, let's get the money out, and that definitely goes to workforce. Another conversation I had with the governor, I says, Governor, you want to do all this, but you know what? You're expecting people to make $20 an hour to go out onto the street and do the hardest work there is available, and that's not gonna cut it. And I says, you know that measure that you sponsored when you were Speaker of the House, it's called pay equity? The pay equity model isn't working so good on this. Yeah. It is inhibiting us for doing what you want to do. You know what she said to me? She says, my God, do I need legal action? She says, well, just go pay him. We paid him. And we're going to continue to pay him what we need, and we're not going to worry about legal challenges with pay equity because this is very important. Okay, and that's one of the downsides to sometimes when you pass a law here, you don't realize the opposite unintendable reaction that has. So we just need to go forward doing that. I'm going to highlight for Clackamas County, since we're in Clackamas County today, all the wonderful things that have happened. As of today in 2003, we have placed into housing 1,207 people in permanent supportive housing and rapid rehousing. We have 4,141 people prevented from entering homelessness through eviction prevention, and that is rental assistance. We have 862 people survived in a shelter, permanent, but we had shelter available for them to move them on through the system. We have 150 units of additional traditional shelter. We have the first coordinated outreach and safety off the streets team helping 579 homeless households experiencing homelessness, and we're reaching hundreds more. We have a coordinated housing hotline that answers calls. The wait time is only 2 minutes. We have $10 million toward a service-enriched resource center in Oregon City that will help. $7.2 million to city-led initiatives where we're partnering with the cities in Clackamas County because, yes, they have homelessness. Maybe they have more than we do in rural Clackamas County just by the fact they're the city. And they have sidewalks, right? So my point is on this. We're doing well, and we're only in year 3. You cannot create a program overnight and expect that it's going to be amped up. It took time to create this program. And what I'm seeing almost on a daily basis is there's this thought out there, or there's this notion, gee, we're collecting so much more money than we ever anticipated, so we're going to yank it back from the counties and we're going to put it over here. But what I'm saying is if you want these programs to succeed, we need to steady the ship. And we need to account for inflation. And inflation is a big factor. I mean, we may think we have $50 million here today, but in year 4 or year 5 from now, that $50 million will be accelerated to $60 million for the exact same program we're offering. And that needs to be into the equation. And the problem with this discussion on the extension of this 10-year bond, it kind of is putting a freeze, I feel, and a hindrance on the progress of our current implementation. Because we're saying, oh, you don't want us to do this, you want to do this. Or, you know, we've had some people say, you can't use it for this. And so our attorney says this, or this is this, and we have these room full of people, and everybody is doing this and this, but what is the county's responsibility to provide the homeless services? It is not Metro. Clackamas County is the oldest housing authority, not only in Oregon, but on the west coast of the United States of America. I think we might have a little bit of experience in it. We are not perfect, of course. We're always learning because this is a human condition. As humans, we need to figure out how to make this work forward and go forward. And the discussions on, and this is not necessary for you folks, because I know you have your opinions, and you've been very supportive of what we're doing. But let's not rock the boat on something that's starting to really take off and move forward by other discussions here on changing what we're doing now. And I'm going to remind everyone, the citizens passed this, although Clackamas County voted against it, as I always like to remind you, with the goal of ending homelessness in 10 years, not perpetuating homelessness with a forever tax. And that's all I'm going to say on that. Any other comments before we end today?
Nope.
I really appreciate what you come today, and I just love the fact that you're volunteering and everybody's trying to work together on this. And I want to thank Clackamas County staff, H3S, and the other staff that's involved in trying to make this work. It's a huge, huge challenge, probably one of the biggest challenges we'll see in our lifetimes. Any other comments from commissioners?
Thank you all.
Seeing no other comments, we are adjourned.